Hello, I'm Jishan Karbanda.
And I'm Brahmbatu, and welcome to our podcast, Weekly Dose of High School, where we'll be guiding you through the life of a high school student while speaking to knowledgeable people in the industry.
Welcome to our seventh episode. Today we are here again with Aditya Prasad, an incoming freshman at Georgia Institute of Technology, where he'll be studying computer science. In the previous episode, we heard Aditya talk about Georgia Tech admissions criteria and some essay tips and tricks. If you haven't checked out that episode, make sure to check out that one first. But in today's episode, Aditya will be talking about his overall experience in the college admission process and his passion for computer science.
Without further ado, let's get into today's episode.
All right, Aditya. And now I'm going to ask you a specific question about CS. So, I know you created this nonprofit, you also did this internship at Meta, and you did competitive programming such as USIGO. So, for people who are unable to do internships or maybe in competitive programming, what do you think are some other good computer science extracurriculars that'll make them look unique and stand out?
Yeah, so a lot of my friends did hackathons and other CS competitions, but wasn't really too much of a thing I'm interested in. The good thing about USICO is the barriers to entry are relatively lower. All you need to do is have a computer at hand and have a basic understanding of data structures and algorithms to kind of progress through the different divisions in USICO. So I also think it's one of the most quantifiable computer science extracurriculars, but again, it doesn't mean much until you reach the gold or platinum division if you're familiar with what those are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that if you make interesting projects, build up your resume, and kind of showcase that on your application, it not only shows your skill in computer science, but also your creativity, your ability to notice problems in society that others haven't, and kind of attempt not only find those problems, but also quantifiably solve them, and have something to show for your efforts. I think that those, for me, kind of mean a lot more than just competing in competitive programming. But then again, there's lots of different opinions on this, and I think that the CS community would be quite divided on this topic. But yeah.
Got it. Yeah, that is. Okay. And so now, about the activities list on the Common App, which people use to file their college applications. So, do you recommend padding up your applications to make them seem more impressive, or do you think admission officers will be able to see right through it?
Yeah, so there's multiple ways to make your activities sound better than they might seem at face value, and I think there's nothing wrong inherently with doing that. But using action verbs and quantifying impact are very common on resumes in industry. And I think the same logic applies to applications as well. Anything that helps. At the same time, you don't want to overdo it, and you can ask someone to kind of read over to double check. That make sure you're not fluffing what you're saying and kind of being succinct while also making it sound nice at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And now, so I'm gonna ask you a question to since you obviously did a lot, you did that Meta internship and you created your nonprofit. So do you think those are the only reasons you got into such a prestigious school such as Georgia Tech? Or was it because maybe your letter of recommendations or your essays, your personal statement?
Yeah, so I think that like I can't really tell specifically.
Hmm.
But I do think that my two extracurriculars, the top ones on my list, kind of had the greatest impact, beyond the academics or whatever. Um, because having a paid internship at Meta, in their AI department, and running my own CS nonprofit kind of demonstrated my proficiency in computer science and also my ability for leadership. And I think it made a clear case for why I might be a good candidate for acceptance to the program which I was applying to at Georgia Tech. So in my opinion, I think those are the major turning points.
Got it. Thank you for all those wonderful responses.
All right, so Aditya, since the applications for colleges are due by this fall, could you describe to us the process of how you decided which college you wanted to use your early decision, early application, and restricted early action?
Yeah, so for any colleges where I could apply early action, I did so while keeping my ED commitment. Since I was EDing to a private school, UPenn, I couldn't REA anywhere. And I do think that EA benefits from most colleges since it demonstrates your interest in the particular school quite well. And as long as you can have the applications for each one ready by the time EA deadlines roll around, I would definitely recommend utilizing the ability to apply EA.
So some schools like University of Chicago, like I've seen on websites like Prep Scholars that they say that if you apply for early decision for University of Chicago, your chances will like increase to like 21%. Do you think these sources are true? I'm not too sure about that.
So it kind of depends what you mean by true. I think that
Or are they accurate?
yeah. So I mean, I definitely don't think that they're lying about the statistics which they're talking about, but at the same time, a lot of that kind of um is a consequence about accepting more like athletes, legacy applicants, and all those. I don't think it constitutes all of the difference, because then again, it kind of does not make sense for them to have that much of a boost simply because of some legacy applicants or athletes. Um, but then again, I do think that there's a significant boost. I know for Cornell, for example, their RD acceptance rate for engineering is 6%, or I think now it's about 6%. And their overall, not their overall, but rather their ED acceptance rate for engineering is 25, which definitely is not because of the applicants to have some sort of hook behind them in full part. But I do think that applying ED to these schools, which with very large differences in their RD and ED acceptance rates, definitely have an impact on your application.
Thank you, Aditya.
Okay, Aditya. So you said you ED to UPenn, and UPenn's like mainly known for like, business, like especially the Wharton School. So like, is there a reason why you ED to UPenn? Like, I'm not sure, I might have missed this, but do you plan on minoring in business, or was it because like you're applying as a CS major to like a potential boost?
Yeah, so the ED to UPenn. So first of all, UPenn has multiple different programs which you can apply to. There's different schools which offer different majors. There's a College of Arts and Sciences. There's a College of Engineering. There's Wharton, obviously. There's also selective dual degree programs which they have. If you've heard of Viper before, or MNT, or I believe Huntsman, they also have their own acceptance rates. And you can ED to the only like those programs specifically. So I chose the ED to the MNT program, which focuses on management technology, with a degree from Wharton and a degree from the Penn School of Engineering. And I was going to probably do computer science in engineering. So, as I had an interest in both business and CS, I believe that it was a good fit for me. And at the same time, the RD acceptance rate for MNT specifically was less than 3%. So I kind of wanted to give myself the best chance for acceptance by applying early decision.
Mhm. Okay, and so now, like we mentioned Cornell, like just some time back about their 25% acceptance rate for engineering. So like for computer science, Cornell like offers two colleges. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, the College of Arts and Sciences and the College of Engineering. So like which one do you recommend an applicant who is intended to major in computer science actually apply to like have their maximum shot of getting into Cornell?
Yeah, so I think that if you're applying ED, then it'll definitely be in your favor to apply to engineering just because of how big the boost is. For arts and sciences, I think that the actual degree difference in a Bachelor of Arts versus a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Engineering is quite minimal, since it's a CS degree. And also the fact that Cornell actually makes it very, very easy for you to switch majors or switch schools after you get accepted. So I would kind of tell you to, for RD purposes, kind of analyze which schools have the highest acceptance rates, and also then choose to apply to those. At the same time, you don't want to apply to the School of Hotel Management if you have absolutely no experience in you know restauranteering or whatever. But Cornell makes it very easy to switch between different schools, and the same isn't the case for UPenn and some other colleges, but for Cornell it is. So in that case, I would tell you to kind of tailor your application, or rather like choose whether to apply to arts and sciences versus engineering, depending on the acceptance rate. I'm not too familiar with what the acceptance rate is for arts and sciences RD, but I would expect that it is higher than engineering. So I would recommend that for RD.
Okay, so two follow-ups on that. So first you mentioned ED to or not you're not telling me, but like you're recommending ED to like College of Engineering because there's a 25% boost. I naturally thought like since it's College of Engineering, you're gonna get like a lot of nerds, quote unquote, who are extremely smart and have like all these sort of competitions. Whereas in College of Arts and Sciences, the competition is a little bit laid back. So like in that case, would you still recommend ED to College of Engineering?
Yeah, again, I'm not too familiar with the ED acceptance rate for arts and sciences, but engineering has a notoriously high acceptance rate for ED. What I will say is that, if you have a top-notch applicant who's gotten into, multiple Olympiads, and kind of compete at the top level of any sort of STEM field, chances are they aren't necessarily going to ED to Cornell, which kind of comes in your favor. So I would recommend taking advantage of the opportunity, because I know like a lot of kids from my school who applied to Cornell ED did actually get in. I think it's about 9 or 10. So kind of anecdotally, I think that it seemed like it would work out for them, and I think that it would work out for you as well.
Got it. And my second follow-up, so like where do you find these ED rates for engineering? Because like I couldn't find them on like the Cornell's website.
Yeah, so I think when Cornell like was sending promotional emails last year for applicants, I was kind of signed up for those, and they sent me an email saying that you should apply ED just because of how large this boost is.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if it's published online, but that is something that Cornell sent explicitly, so I would assume that is correct.
Got it. Thank you. And now one more question before Juan will ask something. So you may be aware of this fact that top 20 universities, T20s, they allow you to like send in an optional art supplement. So like such as musical recording, artwork, a drama production, or a performance. So do you think an applicant who possesses such art skills submit one? Since like a couple years back, College Wine put out an article saying that an art portfolio can actually make your application worse. It can actually make your chances of getting in worse if your art supplement is not on the level of an average art candidate. Whereas even if your extracurriculars and SAT scores and GPA is good, if your art supplement is bad, you can actually get rejected. So do you think that's true?
Yeah, so again, I would be inclined to agree with them there in the sense that um like having an art supplement that kind of is below average would probably not help your application in any way. Um, at the same time, I can't really speak on behalf of that too much because I never actually did instruments or submitted the optional art supplement. But people who I knew in high school, specifically someone who was really interested in orchestra to the extent of being involved in the youth symphony, submitted hers and she received acceptances to multiple Ivy League schools. I don't know the impact of that specific supplement to that, because of her, overall excellent extracurriculars. But I don't think it actually hurts you if you consider yourself to be above average. And I think that if you've been playing the instrument for, quite a long time, you can gauge that skill level quite effectively.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question to Jishan's question. So I'm planning on sending an art portfolio which mentions my skill in editing using apps like Premiere Pro, Adobe After Effects, and Photoshop. Do you think this would make me a more versatile candidate?
Yeah, so I can't really speak on this specifically because I don't have some experience with the art supplement, but I do know that, like a lot of my friends that did actually apply with those supplements and were involved in an instrument did use those programs and softwares to kind of improve their quality of music and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I do think that will definitely like not be detriment, and kind of the impact which it has is kind of directly correlated with the amount of effort which you put in, which I think you're talking about. So yeah, for sure, I think it would be beneficial.
Yeah, thank you, Aditya. I have another question. So, so as of now, there are many merit-based scholarships, such as Coca-Cola Scholarship, the National Merit Scholarship, which are mostly based on your PSAT score in your junior year. So, do you know any others? Do you know any other scholarships, and when do you think it is the right time to apply to these scholarships?
Yeah, so I think you named the major ones, the Coca-Cola Scholarship, the NMSQT, the Gates Scholarship. There's also the Coolidge Scholarship, which takes into account academic qualifications, public service, and other interesting qualities about an applicant. It covers 4 years of tuition, which I think the Gates Scholarship does, if I'm not mistaken. Usually, most of these are open during junior year, so I would apply. I would recommend applying and learning about these as soon as possible, and kind of understanding what each of them is looking for. But yeah.
Thank you, Aditya.
Okay, so like a follow-up on that. So the Coca-Cola Scholarship or the Gates Scholarship. So like many of those applications open up in the fall of like an applicant's senior year, and the results come out like in the spring. And I've seen like people list as one of their awards that they're a Coca-Cola semifinalist. So like how are they able to list this when the results come out after college apps?
Yeah, so I think I didn't apply to this Coca-Cola scholarship, but from someone who did and from my school, I believe that the semifinalist results come out pretty early in the application process. I believe it's like 3 or 4 months before finalists, and I believe the actual scholars are determined. So in the sense where it like a result comes after you apply, you can send a what's called a supplemental document to the college, which you can send pretty early on, I think in January or February. And I think that if you submit that saying that you received a finalist status for a certain scholarship, which is considered prestigious, they definitely will add that to your application. It kind of has the same impact that other awards would. And they're gonna have time to process that alongside all your other achievements. So that's what I recommend what you would probably be better off doing.
Mhm. And you wouldn't like advise to like cheat the system, right? So like you list your 5 awards in the Common App and then like send another supplement via email.
Yeah, no, I don't. Wait, can you repeat that just to make sure I understood the question?
Yeah, so like you mentioned the supplemental document, an applicant could theoretically like list their 5 awards and say if they have more awards that they want to list out, they would send like a supplemental document to a college. So like, do you recommend just doing that solely because you have more awards, or do you only recommend sending the most impactful and meaningful ones?
I would recommend honestly, if you think that it's significant in whatever sense of the word, you can actually add the awards to the additional information section on the application itself. It says instead of a supplemental document, there's a 650, I believe it's 650 word limit on that. So you have more than enough space to kind of talk about other achievements you've received while not being in the 5 awards that like are provided to you by default in the application. But yeah, there's more than enough space to add that on a specific document in the Common App. But if you get an award afterwards, after you apply, then of course you have to send a supplemental document to kind of make up for that. But I would definitely recommend adding that if you think that it would be meaningful yourself.
Thank you. Okay, so Aditya, now for our audience who may be like residing in Georgia, you may have heard of like the Georgia Tech's automatic acceptance or admission. So like if you're a valedictorian or a salutatorian in your graduating class, you automatically gain acceptance to Georgia Tech. So like, what's your opinion on this?
Okay, so I think that since Georgia Tech is a state school with Georgia taxpayer dollars funding the majority of its operations, um, tuition is, I think in Georgia Tech, one of the highest return on investments amongst any school in the country. I think that, except for MIT, Harvey Mudd, and Caltech, the amount that the tuition costs relative to how much students make afterwards is really, really high. So again, the return on investment is super, super high. And the reason for that is because of the subsidies that Georgia Tech receives from the state and thereby from taxpayer dollars. I think that it's crucial that they have initiatives supporting the top students at their own schools. So accepting the valedictorians and salutatorians from each of the schools within their state would definitely be one of the ways which they can do that. Kind of ensures diversity. You're getting people from all parts of Georgia being accepted. And also, I think that if it's a private school, I wouldn't be of the same opinion, just because they have their own interests. They aren't designed to serve the population of the specific state. So, for example, Emory is also in Georgia, but if they had such a program, it wouldn't make too much sense. But yeah, that's kind of my opinion.
Got it. And then, so quick follow up on that. since you are out of state applying for Georgia Tech and you're applying to a competitive major like CS, the admission rate was like obviously very low. So like we talked about this earlier in the last episode, but what do you think that Georgia Tech, like why do you think Georgia Tech makes their out of state like acceptance rate very low? Like what makes their program so competitive in nature?
Yeah, so I actually applied as an international student because I'm not a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, but I have lived here for 15 years or so. So the acceptance rate for internationals was, I think, believe even lower than out of state. Um, but yeah, I think that the percentage of in-staters being still a large proportion of the total student body is kind of driven by the fact that it's a state school funded by Georgians, so it kind of has to serve the Georgians first, and then to everyone else. I think that UCs are kind of an opposite example of this. They have a very relatively small proportion of in-state people compared to the overall, which I think they're trying to change now. But yeah, it's kind of like the motivating factor. Since so much of the school is funded by these citizens, they have to kind of tailor their services towards them, which makes sense from a monetary standpoint.
Thank you.
Okay, Aditya, on to my final question. This question is mainly for med students, including me. So, do you believe that getting into a mediocre college isn't something to worry about, since there's a possibility of getting to a top 10 med school?
Yeah, so again, I'm not a med student. I haven't done too much research on this, but I know a couple friends who have siblings who have studied, at T100s, um, and kind of gone from there to medical school, and now earning like 300K plus. So again, look, it's kind of common knowledge, but the impact of your actual, undergrad is kind of minimal on the medical school which you're actually applying to. Again, your actual career prospects. I do think, of course, in order for like purposes of work ethic and kind of understanding what the rigors of college would be, you should kind of still aim for, a college that kind of is designed for pre-med students, like for example, John Hopkins or whatnot, but it's not like, it's a necessitating factor in your acceptance to med school. So really the impact on, I believe pre-med students' future is quite minimal.
Thank you, Aditya.
Okay, Ditya. So I have one final question for you, and that's going to be related to the University of California. So like UC Berkeley is like one of the more renowned public universities, especially for CS. What do you think? I'm not sure if you applied to UC Berkeley. What do you think UC Berkeley like is asking or like really wants, since they're like SAT, they're like test blind, they don't even accept letter of recommendation. So like what do you think they place emphasis the most on?
Yeah, so I applied to Berkeley as an EECS and business major. If you're familiar with the MET program at Berkeley, I was shortlisted for that. I didn't eventually get in, but that's another story entirely. But yeah, I think that I do know someone from my school who actually had 3.3 GPA, and really like bad letters of recommendation. Since they don't take letters of rec, that had no impact on his application. And since most of his, I believe, like bad grades were in freshman year, that were also wiped out. So he eventually got into Berkeley for CS. What I think they kind of look for is your essays number one, kind of seeing how much of an interest you've had in the subject, what you're applying to. And that's where they have their own application process completely, kind of gauge their interest in each of its applicants. So I kind of think that that's kind of where they're coming from.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Aditya.
Well, that's it for today for episode 7 of Weekly Dose of High School. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to Aditya Prasad speak about his passion for computer science and how he leveraged that in the college admission process. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, or YouTube. We are on all those platforms and we upload weekly episodes, so make sure you subscribe so you never miss an upload. Until then, take it easy, guys.